We will keep
Hey, Posey Gloves here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this sound. Sounds like this. That's the sound I'm going to be showing you how to make. If you like that sound, then cool. This is the original sound that I was basing it off of. Yes, it is the same drum loop. He has it like separate earlier, so I went ahead and just took that out and used it as a reference. Now, you can let me know how close you think I got or didn't get. I don't think I got super duper close, but I have some ideas on things I would do differently next time. But I quite like this sound, and I'm going to show you how to make this sound because this is the one I made. Something that you should know is things like the small EQ moves. For example, here is EQ 1. Here it is on another. So they can sound, and look at how similar they are. Like, they are not too far off in difference. So there's a lot of options you have for sounds like this. Trying to exactly nail that sound, they probably, and here's the other thing, your source material too makes a big difference. So for example, I'm using a Harmor, which is an additive synthesizer. It generates the harmonics differently than, say, Massive. Massive uses wavetables. So their saw waves are going to sound uber different than frickin' Harmor saw waves. They resemble each other, but they are slightly different, and the filters you choose to shape the sound also make a huge difference. So there's all these like nuances, especially in a sound like this, that make it pretty difficult to nail the exact same sound unless you can figure out what tools. Personally, if I were to do this again, I'd probably go for something that emulates a analog. That emulates an analog synth. So for example, like Monarch. And this is a preset. It's not a sine wave all by itself, but I mean a saw wave all by itself. It's going through some things. But what makes it really cool is I feel like it gets closer to the texture that they had than the one I used, but I settled on Harmor and just went ahead and ran with this. So that's the sound that I have. Okay, so let's dive into the ideas behind making it and also just why I did certain things the way I did. So first, this is our sound. Next, this is Harmor. And so I wrote in the lines. It's a little tricky because it's a kind of a funky tune and the thing doesn't come in right in on down the downbeat, which I think is great. It does repeat a lot though. So it's sort of like, it's a very repetitive thing. But that's house. So what we have here is we have this frequency, and the very first thing when you listen to this sound is you determine what is creating that pluck. What is making you go boom, boom, boom. And I went about it with two things. So the first thing is it's very obviously some sort of a filter. So if I were to turn the filter off, that's what I have. Not near as accurate as this. And I'm going at it with, if you right click on your filter, you can go to edit articulator and you can write out an articulator to tell it how to turn off every time you hit a note. And so you can see our progression of time by this line right here. And so if I were to, so this is the thing. And if you listen, there's a little bit of there's a tone at the beginning. It's not like a boom, boom, boom. It's not like a total pluck. It's like a boom, boom, boom. It's got a little bit of sustain to it. So what I have here is I have it going and then it sustains a little bit, but it still filters some, and then it goes ahead and releases. If I turn this down, I get that. That's nowhere near what it was. So that's a lot closer. So I went with this and I sort of finessed this, but I wasn't getting quite what I wanted. So I went in to the volume. If I turn this off, I was like, that's okay, but it's not quite as, sharp as the other one is. So I went with this, and it's just a slight curve. It's helping it cut off just a little bit sooner, giving it that little bit of edge. The reason I use the volume knob versus the filter is because I wanted to get at it with this. I wanted to get at it in a way that this wasn't involved in, because I already had something that I quite liked, and it's just a lot. You can move this around and do some things, but to me, adding in, and this also will use an all-pass filter, so it's stopping the general all the frequencies in the sound. So it also does something else. So I went with this. It was easier for me in my creative process to do it this way. You can achieve something pretty similar just by manipulating the filter shape more. Now, I've rolled off some of these highs just because they don't really exist in the original sound, so I didn't put them. I have the sub in because without the sub, so you see that low support comes in. Again, here's one more without, with. so that just that low end sort of fills up a little bit more. I quite like it. Sometimes this doesn't sound so great, but in this case, it sounded fine. And that's it actually for this. There's nothing else in there. If I go to the EQ, I had a battle here and was trying to figure out what kind of a shape. I dipped the highs, I was messing with the lows. A sound like this is fundamentally formed by these harmonics in this section. It's pretty obvious because there's not a lot happening to the sound. So I went through some compression, and this EQ is by far the most important step. So let's go ahead and look at what it sounds like without the EQ. So we're going to go to default here. That's what we have. And then the next game is, okay, you listen to this, and you say, oh, ooh, what is that? And so I went ahead and boosted. And what I like to do is I'll take a series of bands that are kind of narrow, and I'll boost them, and I'll start searching for the shape. But something you need to be aware of is the cuts. So you want to listen for things that are missing from the spectrum as well. So we listen, and it's very clear there's quite a lot missing. So I'm going to listen to my sound. So if we boost right there, you get that resonance, and you can hear there's resonance in here. Because it's got a like that sort of nasally quality is resonance. Like it's a red flag for resonance. But this is sort of a crunchier resonance. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the stuff in this area because it sounds like it's not in there. It's a different type, and its absence is important. So you see we're getting a very different sonic quality. And it sounds like there's definitely some sort of low end boost. And the slow stuff just sounds like it's not there. So I'll do that, and then they probably use smoother shapes. So after I sort of approximate it by putting together these peaking filters with the boost or cut or whatever, then I'll maybe smooth it out later. But sometimes I'll just leave it as is because I got something that I think is pretty close. So like, let's say that that's what I wanted, right? And see, like that small move, like listen to the difference. Like that's a big difference in my book. If you're trying to do something that's similar to that, that's going to make a big difference in the sound. Maybe you're like, I don't hear it, but just listen. It's pretty big. So you have all like just the smallest moves can make such a big difference. So that's what sort of makes some of this kind of hard. So anyways, you play the EQ game. I ended up settling on this. And that's pretty astounding. So this is the shape I settled on. But again, those tiny, tiny moves can make a huge difference. So even if we tried mimicking this, like let's say like, oh yeah, we'll do something like that. We'll get a similar contour going. You see I cut a lot further. I determined that that area was not there. Put up some mids and smooth this out. Maybe bring this over, make it a little wider. Okay, so that's that one. And this similar looking curve sounds like this. That's like so different. So, oh, I have a big cut right here too. Let's see. Anyways, my goal is not to make the EQ sound the same by matching the shape. But you get the idea. Like these small moves are a big difference. So let's go into Maximus. And then the last thing with Maximus is there's this warm quality to it, this mid. So I tried messing with the band. So you see the mid band goes into the low range a little bit. And I'm bringing all that up just a smidge using upwards compression. And I brought the attack down. It was doing things I wasn't happy with, so I went ahead and removed it. Let's go ahead. I went ahead and added the low and warmth. If we turn the compression off with it. So this was sort of important. And I was making all these EQ adjustments with this already there. I had made some general EQ moves, and then I added my compressor, and then I went back and changed them. And then I changed this, and you go down this battle of how did they get this sound? So it's like, oh, I don't know. So I did that, messed with the bands, changed what frequencies. It's important to get some of that upper low end in the mid range. So in the mid band. So it's kind of an interesting deal. Went down about 100 hertz. And then, well, this is like low mids. So then we pull down the highs. If we go to the monitor, I'm taking the highs down, but I'm boosting them quite a bit. This is kind of important because they're high end. It's like still there, but it's like not at the same time. So I tried just flattening it out a little bit and bringing it up. And it worked out okay. If we turn it off. So it smooths it out, removes it. You can see that there's a difference in output quite substantially. But this little white speck is what's coming out now. This green speck is what, I believe that was the input. The output. No, that's the output. So that's the output. And where is this? These are the inputs, right? Yeah, so that's what was coming in. So we're changing it pretty dramatically. So that's that. And that's how I made the sound. If you have any questions about it, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.